Right, back to the old format. I grew up in a Thai restaurant, and it's pretty obvious just by looking at me that I love food. So it's no surprise that I enjoy the odd cooking show. Once upon a time, I used to really enjoy MasterChef, but has anyone seen the ads for the new season?
For me, what MasterChef did is it sparked off the biggest food explosion I've seen in any country in the world.
MasterChef is more than a cooking competition. I just loved seeing the passion of these cooks. I mean, I just felt so alive.
It inspires people. Inspires people to come into our industry, inspires people to cook at home, inspires people to feed their families better.
When did cooking get that stick up its backside? Okay, all kidding aside, the culinary arts has always enjoyed a rather highfalutin status. Food is a vital part of life, and the preparation of that food has been a normal part of our everyday, possibly even before the discovery of fire. But like any creative endeavour, it developed into something with meaning, depth and grandeur that quite often steps over into the pompous. We hear chefs and foodies constantly use words like passion, drive and inspiration when talking about food. You don't sit down to a meal, you have an experience. Cooks aren't competing on reality TV, they're going on a journey. The funny thing is, that's how I talk about cosplay.
Prick, wanker.
To be fair though, the art of fine cooking has also enjoyed a secondary reputation in also trying to make it more accessible to the average person. Back in the 1960s and 70s, in one of the very first cooking shows on television, Julia Child was best known for demystifying French cuisine for the average American. Her relaxed attitude and sense of humour appealed to audiences, as well as a fearlessness in getting right in there, making a mess and showing mistakes. This anyone-can-cook attitude has persisted mainly because we all relate to food due to how important it is to us. As I said, I talk about cosplay in a rather pretentious manner because, like any other creative art form, cosplay is a creative way to express oneself. That expression has depth and meaning, whether or not the cosplayer is aware of it. Anything from, I think that looks cool, to, this shaped my childhood. The motivations and choices a cosplayer makes is a big part of that expression. I balance that out by also promoting more accessible and affordable ways of making, the repurposing of materials or looking for alternatives and local bargains. This is because not everyone can afford Warbler or has access to 3D printing. And just like those who encourage more home cooking, I encourage more making, as that's where a major part of my interest in this hobby comes from. Tune into any food-related channel and you will see a whole host of shows covering the spectrum from appealing to the everyday cook to shows featuring people who use words like gastronomy as if it were normal. Food culture enjoys a balance between the highbrow as well as accessibility to the average person. Unfortunately, a lot of the discussions about cosplay tends to get stuck in the more trivial end of things. Whenever controversy or drama arises, the instant response is to remind everyone that cosplay is just a hobby, or it's just meant to be fun, or we're just nerds playing dress up. And while these things are true, cosplay isn't just about those things. It becomes really insufferable when some use superficial marketing like taking things to the next level and feeling like a superstar, which is all well and good, but the more we keep repeating these things, the more likely we dismiss and trivialize our own efforts and motivations. There are corners of the community that do focus on the personal and the meaningful. The web series Cosplay Boom is an excellent example of this. They don't just showcase cosplay, they celebrate and explore it by doing something very simple. They ask cosplayers what drives them. Just like those who want to open their own restaurant, there are cosplayers who want to make props and costumes for a living. Some people enjoy the process of cooking, some enjoy the process of making. There are people who enjoy meeting like-minded fans, and then there are those who take up these activities as a form of therapy for their disabilities and injuries. I understand self-deprecation. I do it all the time, and I get that this attitude is about countering ego and staving off elitism, but the current balance is off. Moving on, Alton Brown is one of my new heroes. Dissatisfied with cooking shows at the time, the former cinematographer, who then enrolled in culinary school to learn about food, created his own show, Good Eats, which ran for 14 seasons. It was more than just about recipes. It explored the history and cultural origins of our favourite foods, as well as delved into the science of the why and how of ingredients and techniques. He once helped the Mythbusters cook an entire Thanksgiving dinner on the engine of a Cadillac. Here he is with Adam Savage cosplaying at San Diego Comic-Con, but I digress. It's Alton's latest show I want to highlight.
I have $100,000 of cold hard cash in this case. 4 chefs get $25,000 each. If they want to leave this kitchen with any of the cash, they have to survive 3 culinary challenges. and each other.
Don't hate the player, hate the game.
In a game where sabotage is not only encouraged, forcing them to do their cooking in the smallest cast iron skillet I could find.
No way.
It's for sale.
3,000.
77.
It's a game we like to call Cutthroat Kitchen.
These days, most reality TV competitions give me bowel irritations, so I must admit, this took me a few goes to really get into. Alton's twisted sense of humour kept me watching. Eventually, I figured out why I enjoy the show so much. I'm a believer in skills and a level playing field when possible, so originally, I didn't like these sabotages, despite being the central premise of the show, and they're more ridiculous than just a secret ingredient or a last-minute challenge.
Win this auction, and you can force two of your opponents to do all of their prep on this underwater prep station. They'll have to wear these and look through the aquarium as they work. Thank you very much, Bobs. Win this auction and you can assign my jungle torch to one chef as their only source of heat. You can force one of your opponents to do all of their cooking with this melted pot. Want to give somebody a complete meltdown? Bidding begins at $500.
Even worse, I just hated the trash talking and the arrogance of many of the chefs featured. Sure, some were putting on a confident facade to which I can relate, but many were outright insufferable. And then one day it clicked. In the real world, this shit wouldn't fly, but in the context of the show, I no longer saw sabotages as such. Instead, I saw them as obstacles. These have been designed in such a manner that they don't prevent a contestant from making a decent meal altogether, but simply adds an extra level of difficulty. And all it takes is knowledge, skill, and an ability to problem solve to overcome the obstacle.
Chef Vince got stuck with the beer bottles for mixing, but he's showing some real ingenuity in dealing with it, using a piping bag to kind of squeeze those fish chunks down into the bottle. I'm impressed.
And more often than not, the arrogant and overconfident get their ass handed to them by those who do have the genuine skills to make it work. Art has an ability to thrive under restriction. In many cases, it helps focus on what's important. It's certainly no hard and fast rule, but we've seen plenty of examples of throwing money and resources at something that results in a turd, whereas a gold nugget can be produced from far less. As I said before, not everyone has access to the latest and greatest, but knowledge and skill can contribute to the ability to problem solve and work with what you have. So much beautiful work has been created using the most humble of materials. I've spent 10 years as a graphic designer, i.e. I get paid shit all. So what began out of necessity, my frugality and love of repurposing, is now my shtick. And I enjoy that because, like so many others, not only do I develop my skills and materials knowledge, but also satisfy my creativity, with plenty left over to get wasted on the weekend. Before I wrap up, as we're talking about cooking shows, I want to highlight my new favourite thing at the moment. I know I'm late to the party, but the Aussie web series The Catering Show is gut-bustingly hilarious, regardless of whether you love or hate cooking and food culture.
This show is all about me and how I can cook delicious recipes that won't make McCartney shit her pants.
But food isn't just about not shitting your pants, it's also about happiness.
It's about health.
It's about controlling your life expectancy through what you put in your body so that you never die unexpectedly on a toilet.
Season 1 is available on YouTube. Seasons 1 and 2 are on ABC iView. Yes, this is one of those things are like other things discussions. Cosplay is just like any other creative art form, and it has so many similarities to something like fine cooking, and yet we don't have the same balance in how we talk about cosplay. If we continue to downplay our achievements, then how do we expect others to respect what we do and love? If everything is so flippant and fun, then how do we expect to have the backbone to tackle the more serious issues? Food has always played an important part of history and culture, and is often the focus in anthropological studies. Cosplay is a form of expression, and it too has an impact on popular culture, just like any art movement. Pretentious as that sounds, we're making a small contribution to culture simply by showing the world what we love to do. Here endeth the sermon.